England are world champions. Would you believe it? Yes, of course, I'm talking about the Women's World Cup that came to its finale on Saturday at Twickenham, or the Allianz Stadium now, in front of a bumper crowd. I believe it's over capacity. I believe it was in the region of about 80-odd thousand. Correct me if I'm wrong there. But England came away with a win. And what I suppose that the video here is, what does this do for women's rugby? What does this do for the profile of the game and about funding into the game as well? Certainly, it raises a profile. I've been following along with the games. There's been some great games all the way through the tournament, which started in August. You had pool games right at the start. England came through that, 3 wins out of 3. Pretty much blew away the opposition, then went into the quarters and the semis, and then into the final. And I'll just go through some of the fixtures here, because that was really, really impressive. Let me just bring it up here. So in Pool A, England had three wins out of 3, came out at 15 points. Pool B, Canada won all their 3 games, New Zealand won all their 3 games, and France won all their 3 games. So really, those are the 4 favourites going into the quarterfinals. So let's say, for example, England in their first game against United States, they stuffed them 69-7. Their second game, they stuffed a Samoa 92-3. I mean, it's substantial, right? And then against Australia, you think, okay, we thought it would be a stiffer opposition, 47-7. So then they went into the quarterfinals, and it was much of a muchness. Quarterfinals, they came up against Scotland, beat them 48. Semi-finals came up against France, who had actually done really well until that point as well themselves. They beat them 35-17. So it was all set up for Canada in the final. Canada had come through their quarterfinals against Australia 46-5. And in the semi-final, had beat New Zealand, who, tipped as one of the favourites, actually, 34-19. So it was New Zealand against France for the bronze medal, third place position match. And then Canada, who, came up against England at the Allianz Stadium, the old Twickenham, in front of 80,000 fans. And they beat them, England beat them 33-13. So overall, it's got to be considered a huge success in terms of the tournament, in terms of the attraction that it got. And you're talking 80,000 fans that want to go to a final. That's always great. But has this really raised the profile? We often find this with sports, that they get a bump in terms of a tournament. I mean, it was always the same for like tennis years ago in terms of, Wimbledon. There's always that bump when Wimbledon comes here in the UK, then it dies off again. So you wonder now, what can this do for the women's game in terms of not necessarily just the profile, but in terms of the investment, in terms of getting it televised more on a regular basis? Will it feature in years to come? And I'm not just talking about the big tournaments like the World Cup. What I'm actually talking about is league games. I'm talking about, Saturday games, from lesser teams, let's say, or from lesser nations. Will they start to feel that push? As, let's say, it's happened in women's football. WSL, there's been a huge push in the last few years. It's almost like it has to be shown on TV. It has to be talked about in the same circles as men's football. There's nothing wrong with it. I don't have a view on that. I know some people do, but I don't in that regard. I'm just wondering whether there will be the same kind of push for women's rugby to get the same kind of profile. There's still a long way to go, of course, but with results like this, it can only be a great thing. It can only be a great thing. First time in 11 years, I believe, England have done this. So fantastic for them. Fantastic result. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. But I'll tell you what, it can only be a good thing for women's rugby for me. It can only be a good thing. And if it continues and there's more of a push in terms of broadcasters wanting to feature women's rugby in the future, it can only grow. It can only go from strength to strength. Just like as in women's football, soccer, as Americans would say, that has grown and grown and grown, possibly sometimes artificially pumped up in many ways. Sometimes you might argue, but the figures don't lie. And some of the teams now are getting some very respectable crowds at their games. Let's say the likes of Arsenal getting really big crowds there. So you would imagine that women's rugby might be a slower pathway, but it can get there. But take nothing away from England. And also the rest of the nations who put on stellar games. They were good to watch, I've got to say. I'm not the biggest rugby union fan, I've got to say. This is men's or women's in terms of just a game. But I caught a few games and I was entertained. It was good. It was good stuff. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. If you like what I do here, keep on watching the videos. But listen, this is the channel that will feature other sports, and possibly I'll be featuring the snail racing championships coming up very soon. But but for now, it's women's rugby, and all kudos to them and congratulations, England, world champions. Catch you again. Bye now.